more children with mental health challenges, or are we seeing less? Or like someone said, like, why bother? Because they are kids.
Oh yeah, the statistics is glaring. Over the years, there has been a massive surge when it comes to mental health, particularly when it comes to these neurodevelopmental conditions, and also some of these mood disorders. Yeah, that's the depression, bipolar, and anxiety and all that. Typically, depression, because most youth who hit, especially the adolescent stage, when they are getting to 11 years onwards, you could see that there's a massive pressure on them. And it is coming from various forms. It could be social media, pressures from, their colleagues, family members, expectations, and all that. So usually, the pressures could get to them, making them go through such phases. Yeah, so there has been, I think, last year, for instance, we were able to get to a point that we realized most of the suicide attempt cases, it was centered around these adolescents.
Wow.
Yeah, so it is really essential for us to pay attention.
Well, Paul, let me bring you into the conversation. You are a mental health nurse, and
Yeah, sure.
you guys have been doing this, and shouts to all mental health nurses who have been holding the fort for psychiatrists and clinical psychologists all over the country.
Yeah, sure.
What does the picture look like to you from where you sit? Because I don't know whether it's in our training. For me, when I meet people somewhere, I'm always looking for medical problems. I don't know. Like, I see somebody walking, I'm like, this thing. You know, how you are seeing these kids, you are seeing these youth. Are the numbers going up? Should we be that worried?
Yes, the numbers are going up. And I think people are beginning to realize that there are some sort of abnormalities in terms of children growing up. And parents are beginning to appreciate the fact that they will need to seek for mental health care so that they tend to prevent at early stages some of the symptoms the children are presenting, so that in their latter stage of life, it wouldn't affect their interpersonal relationships or their personality per se as they grow.
But Paul, let me ask you, see, when we're all growing up, I mean, we're all boys, when you reach a certain age, you want to be rebellious. But I think that is, even when you are closer to adolescence, I want that to come a bit down. So, at what age should parents, caregivers, at what age should you be aware that your child has a mental health, like there's mental health issue that is your child? Some children are always moody and they say, oh, wait, there's not here.
The issue here is parents are not able to understand their children's mood. They are also, our system has created it in such a way that you don't even want to listen to your child. You feel your child is dumb and he doesn't know anything. Meanwhile, children, it might shock you that children have personal needs and personal issues they might want to voice out. So parental style is really a problem. And it will be very important that you study your child from childhood, get to understand their potentials, understand their mood, understand their process of thinking, to be able to calm down to their level, match up with them whilst you raise them up. So that in case there's any form of abnormalities in terms of their behavior or any form of behavioral issues or emotional issues, you can easily track as a parent.
No, but the thing is that, we seem to assume, and I agree with Paul, that a child is a child. Like people say in trees, jano. But you do have kids who are consistently moody, always crying. That's the other side, and ones who are always happy. As if you're in front of home, there's a car coming and she's crossing the road. At what point should the parents say, no, I need to get somebody to look at, have a look at my child, more or less?
Yeah, I think Paul emphasized something about you, the parent or the caregiver. Right from the word go, you have to understudy your child. because children go through various milestones or phases of life.
Yeah.
So right from the time they are born into this world to 2 years, we have certain milestones as a parent. You are supposed to be attentive. But one thing about parents are that most parents are not all. I think the awareness there is also quite low. So they don't really know when their child is going through certain phases. It becomes difficult for them to understand and all that. So, for instance, Freud will point out that from 0 to 2 years is the oral stage, whereby as a parent you are supposed to feed the child, and you doing that, you are creating some sort of bond. Okay. And as the person grow, there's that sort of trust. But here comes the case: some parents they would wait for several minutes or hours before attending to the child's need. The child will cry profusely, you not attending. So to some extent, you are building up certain aggressions in the child, because if you've really paid attention, when the child is denied food for some minute or so, when the mother tried to breastfeed, you could see that the child doesn't want to even take the breast milk, because he or she feels, okay, you've waited for a longer period before feeding. So that's where they build up some of these aggressions from. And when they grow up, they pick up these personalities, we become part and parcel of their behavior. Then from 3 years to say 5 years, that's the oral stage. Okay. Whereby as a parent, you're also supposed to pay attention to some of their training, especially toilet training. Okay. If it is not well done, you are too strict on them, it could also build up certain behaviors. You could see that's where it starts from. So every milestone, there are certain key things as a parent you are supposed to be attentive, or else it could lead up to other personalities and all that.
Let me take you back. Toilet training or potty training is one of the things that parents are so strict about.
Yeah.
Especially when it's got to do with things like bedwetting.
Exactly.
And Apple.
It's true.
But it's like mentally, we adults expect that when the child gets to, let's say, 5, 6, you are not supposed to be weeing on the bed.
Exactly.
And you're saying that can be the beginning.
Yeah, because you should know that, okay, although you've trained a child, potty training and all that, but as a parent, you should understand from the child's point of view that a child is a child. It's not always that he or she would adhere to some of these training you've put out. So when you become too strict towards the child, you also sinking in their mind that, okay, as a human, you are not supposed to. There's no room for errors. No room for errors. So the person will grow up becoming very, very perfectionist. Always want to do things in a perfect manner. When there's any flaws or any mistakes, you could see that the person will beating up on him or herself, thinking that, hey, I'm a failure. That's where it starts from. And if care is not taken, it could lead up to other anxiety disorders and even some mental disorders like obsessive compulsive disorder. So that's where it starts from. Some of these things.
No, yeah. Paul. So let me read a message that has come in from a listener, and she's saying that potty training is difficult, especially more difficult as the child grows up, and you expect that the child should know when to wake up and go and pee. So if I have a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old who is still peeing, she says, of course I'm going to get upset.
Yeah, sure. I always say that before even you give birth, you should be in your right frame of mind, or if in terms of you being ready, because it's a whole work.
I can understand.
I don't subscribe to the fact that I'm of age, so let me just give birth. No, I think you should understand yourself, be ready that this is what you're coming to face, because raising a child is a whole work you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, from 7 upwards, and you think your child is not able to control in terms of bedwetting or whatever, doesn't cause you, the parent, to be angry or be too harsh on the child, because psychologically the child is not even happy, and he might need help desperately. And if the child wants to verbalize to you, he will tell you that I need help myself. Meanwhile, there's help around, but parents don't know that there's help. From 7 upwards, a child is weary, there's help for it.
Let me play a devil's advocate. People feel that when we give voice to children, it's like we are over pampering them. So I say sleep. I say wake up. Okay.
Yeah.
So if, for instance, like you're saying, it starts from how you even nurture the child, how you even feed the child, and how you guide the child through things like simple potty training.
Yeah. And I think usually most parents, as you rightly said, think that, okay, as a parent, I'm supposed to be on top, then the child will be beneath. So my word is final. When you do that, usually you are breaking a barrier. So I normally say, as a parent, you see your child as what? As a friend. When you have that sort of connection with your child, the child feels comfortable coming to you, because when they are reaching certain milestones, like especially they are getting to the adolescent stage, they are going through a whole lot of crisis because they are going through certain physiological changes. They themselves don't even understand what they are really going through. Okay. And there's a whole lot of pressure, especially we living in a contemporary world whereby digitization is really, really high. They're exposed to myriad forms of things. So there's some form of raw confusion about what is really expected of them. So as a parent, if you're not there as a friend and always you've created that sort of barrier, always the child wouldn't come to you when they are going through, they are confused about certain things and all that. So hence, where do you think they will get it? They will get it from friends, and that's where it starts from. And if care is not taken, then it will lead up to other vices and all the social vices and all that. Yeah.
0593932993. That's the WhatsApp line. 0593932993. That's the WhatsApp line. If you can send a voice note or a text, we'd appreciate your thoughts on this conversation. But we are talking this morning about mental health in children, or children's mental health, and how we can protect it, how we can even identify that, first of all, my child may need some form of mental health intervention. But I mean, both of you work in the psychiatry unit, or now I think it's called the behavioral sciences unit, which is still a bit more friendly. Psychiatry unit sounds a bit it's a very stigmatized department. Good morning to you, JP, and congrats on being HOD. But adults listening will go like, if I tell people I'm taking my child to see a clinical psychologist, it's like I'm giving up. It's like I think my child is not, or people say, I think my child is crazy or something.
Yeah, I think that's most often than not, that's the main phrase or term they normally use. Which it has nothing to do with such things, because anyone could go through certain crisis that needs help. It could be like, okay, usual forms of the person being in a low mood, going through some depressive phase because of hitting a hard rock, whereby he or she feels, okay, I can't take it anymore, so I need help. So that's where they seek for mental health professionals' help. It could be from, let's say, they are going through some form of anxieties, or some people, they have these aggressive tendencies, so they flare up easily. So hence, as a child, when you see your child flaring up, having difficulties controlling such emotions, that's where a clinical psychologist come in. So although we deal with other severe cases, but it could start from anywhere, any angle. It has to do with stress, because day in and day out, we all go through stresses. We are exposed to myriad forms of stresses. Some people, they have difficulties handling such stresses because of their personality. So a clinical psychologist will be in there to guide such individual how they can cope or manage with the stress that they are dealing with. So that's how it is.
Do you guys teach these things to parents want to learn or teachers in school? Because I was quietly listening to Ken, and I'm thinking back to when I was in primary school. I don't say decades ago, but decades ago, right? Like, you have some classmates who are, either like very aggressive. Every little thing, like he wants to fight with you. His pen, you have, and these, for some of them, I can't even remember where they are now, but there are some I remember vividly did not end up too well, especially, after junior secondary school. Then some of them, didn't even go to senior high school. But if an adult identifies something troubling in a child, like a mood disorder, like a child has terrible mood swings or what should they even do? I'll give you some minutes to think that through. We have a voice note. I want to play it. I want to keep the conversation flowing so that we can. So let's listen to this voice note.
Doc, good morning. Please, you are having a nice discussion, but to be honest, I'm a little bit confused about what your guest is saying. Is he trying to say, let me give you a scenario that if I'm a parent, then I tell my child to wash the dishes every morning, and then my words are final. Is he trying to tell me that if I do that, I am overdoing my tax or my
Orange 107.9?
Not a friend to me. I mean, I'm a little bit confused. If he can talk a little bit about that. I mean, that the Bible is saying that when you spare the rod, you will spoil the child. So I mean, you should try to explain that a little bit for us. Thank you.
All right, thank you. 0593932993. That's the WhatsApp line, and like he just did, you can send the voice note. 0593932993. Paul. So he says, spare the rod and spoil the child.
Yeah, sure. I think we misinterpret some of these scriptures. let me put it that way. One thing is, we have a positive reinforcement and a negative reinforcement.
Okay, so break that down to the level of somebody
Good. So
who doesn't know what that is.
In our African setting or in our environment, in our culture setting, we tend to use more of the negative reinforcement as a form of trying to be so strict, which will help the child to do whatever he wants to do. And I'll tell you, every child comes with a personality as he or she is growing.
Yeah.
You might shout on a child.
Yeah.
The child might feel cool with it. Okay, maybe smile about it. You might shout on the child. That child will get angry, will be depressed, or feel sad. And he might even go to the extent of feeling that probably you don't even love him. So you can have a way of saying the same thing and getting the same results, rather than using a forceful and a harsh way of trying to instruct your child. Meanwhile, you could have passed through another way to help your child do whatever he wants to do.
Okay.
So you shouting, getting the same results, and me using a nice way and getting the same result. Which one are you going to choose?
No, but we I don't know whether it is I don't know whether it's how we were also brought up.
Yes, so
because we look at it as me, I was given a tough time growing up.
Yes, I was coming there.
And I'm cool.
So one thing is we tend to fall on the how our great-grandparent or our grandparent raised our fathers. So our fathers were raised in a strict and in a harsh way. A father can tell you, hey, do you know how I was raised? Charlie, I was trekking here and there.
Yeah.
My father was, and that made me tough. So the same way. Meanwhile, your personality might be different from your child. Totally. Your child might not want to go through that steps. He wants to have a fruitful conversation with you, to be able to come to some sort of consensus that, okay, Daddy, I want to do this. Okay, he needs some explanation why you don't want him to do this, but to get the other option, so that you can, okay, fine. Then I think I'll choose. Instead of you going in an authoritative form, the child can be timid growing up. He might not be able to come out of himself. He always be in shell, and he cannot really come out of him, his potentials to be able to even take responsibilities or initiatives for himself.
So it is how we probably transpose
our experiences and try to lay it on our children, thinking that the same processes are the right way and the right way we have to go. Without, even if you have four children or 5 children, you're supposed to understand each and every person's personality he's bringing. So you must shout on the first child. The first child might be cool. The second child might get bored. The third child might cry and get depressed and be in the room for maybe some hours. Then you should know that there's a difference in terms of your behavior.
So every child has their personality.
Different personality.
Yeah,
that's how it is.
That is how it is. And parents don't know that. So they
treat
them the same way.
Because we assume that they're kids. Like,
they don't know anything.
Yeah, like, sit down. But you're saying that we should explain to the child why, like you said, okay, so I need you to wash the dishes every morning. That's your task. That's your chore. You can say that in a way that it's not
in a harsh way.
It's not harsh.
Yeah.
But what if the child doesn't do it?
You give him the importance of the reason why you're supposed to wash the dishes and why you are supposed to clean yourself. Like being in a neat environment or in a hygienic environment.
So you're saying that like the negative reinforcement is where we're using things like punishment, right?
Yes.
But you haven't done
no. Some can even instruct without even giving reason.
Paul, I said go and sleep at 8 o'clock.
Why should I sleep?
It's 9. You are still sitting here.
Daddy, I want to sit here for a while. No, you have to sleep because you might want to wake up quite early, do 1 or 2 things before we get to school. I have to prepare your diet for you before I can carry you to school. Maybe I don't want you to wake up whilst you still feel sleepy. That is what I want you to. You've done diligence to explaining the whole situation to the child rather than go and sleep. I'm instructing you, go and sleep. And I tell you, that's what most parents do. There's no reason to it. I said go and sleep. I told you 9. When it's 9, sleep. I think we should be patient with how we go about things. If you're not patient, then I don't know how you want to raise your child. Because I tell you, it will affect the child's interpersonal relationship. And people get issues with their relationship when they grow up. They get issues working with people. They have temperament issues in terms of they don't even have open-minded feel when they are having a fruitful conversation with people.
And you're saying all that stems from...
It builds up
right from
to your latter part of your age.
And even if you want to met out certain positive punishment, most parents, especially African parents, they met out the positive punishment without even explaining to the child. A, B, C, and D is what you did.
And they'll neglect you
as to why I'm meting out.
So you're supposed to say, let's say, maybe because...
Yes, let the child know. So that subsequently, because the child is a child. So if you don't let him or her get to know the reasons as to why this is really done, you haven't done anything. Because I know our ultimate is that we are punishing the child as a means to decrease a particular negative behavior. So in an attempt to do that, you have to explain things to the child, so that subsequently the child will know that okay, if I do the same thing, that will met out a punishment to me. So hence I need to be off from such things. And sometimes we are, as he said, we are more glued towards the positive punishment, neglecting other forms. We have one known as negative punishment, whereby you can even find out certain things the child enjoys doing. Then you do you just take it away from the child. So most Western parents do that. You could see when you're watching some of these Western movies, they will say you are being grounded. In that, grounding simply means that, the child did something wrong. So the parent has been able to identify something that the child likes doing, maybe playing video games, or right from school after, when the child comes home, he has a favorite channel he normally watches. So he will say, okay, be in your room. You wouldn't watch any telly or play any video games for a particular period. That alone is a form of punishment which will sink into the child's mind that, hey, this is what I did. And that is why mom and dad is what is punishing me. So hence, I need not to do that again. So these are some of the various forms we normally use. But in our setting,
Punishment, even per se, has different forms.
yeah,
I think Africans, we choose the spanking or the schooling side of
positive
it.
punishment. That's what we know.
Why?
We,
You have to pull up a cane
but Paul,
or
that
a
one
belt
it
or-
works. So
Even as my brother said, he was saying, even explain to the child, even when you want to spank or give some sort of punishment, even the child crying or feeling uncomfortable, you still have to draw the child to yourself and make him feel that, in as much as I've punished you, it doesn't mean I dislike you.
then those of us who went to school in the 90s, the teachers destroyed our mental health too. Good morning to all the poor teachers in the 90s.
Sometimes we build our frustration on the children. I tell you, most of the cases we could have handled in a different way, but we don't have that patience ourselves. We ourselves have not even worked on ourselves well. If we don't have
So
that kind
we
of
just
patience.
transmit that anger,
Straight
whatever
up.
we're feeling,
Yes.
and then we put it on the child.
That is it. Then some people will just remember how he was even raised, and this is how it went for me.
I was
so let me
raised.
do the same thing. Even in your classroom, you should understand each and every
That
one.
everybody in the
Yes,
classroom
this
has a
person is-
different
have an idea
personality.
about, okay, this person is like this person is like, so that you can understand their makeup and how they respond to other things or things around them, so that you don't treat them the same way. That is why I was in the beginning. I was saying that you have to be mentally ready and be ready in such a way that you want to raise someone, not just giving birth to like I'm giving birth to 10 and I'm happy. You know, some people, hey, yeah, wow, 10.
I would tend.
Please, there's a lot of work to it, and when you don't do that, you are just bringing a burden on the whole society.
Yeah.
He will not be able to fit in. And if this thing continues, it stresses the very person, and that's where the mental illnesses start setting in, as a result of the person not being able to overcome some of these psychological issues. Then all these things will start setting in. So I think moving forward, parents will try and adjust their punishment processes and probably stick to conversation. In fact, don't be put off by certain questions your child will ask you. In fact, you take time and listen to them, think through, and you know that they have a point somewhere, and that is what they are thinking about. In terms of the explorative stage, they want to know this water, how was it even packaged this way?
Exactly.
But you know, I think it's because maybe people don't understand that children go through phases.
yeah.
You know, there's a phase where they're asking you why for everything.
Everything, yeah.
You know, like why is this? Why is that? And if you're not patient at that stage,
It can be frustrating though, but you have to be patient.
it's 47 minutes past 8 o'clock here on 107.9 Orange FM. This is the Orange Health Lounge. My name, as always, is Dr. Kwesi Jima. This morning I'm joined by Mr. Kenneth Ansah, who is a clinical psychologist, and Mr. Paul Appiah, who is a mental health nurse at the Companionship Teaching Hospital. You can send in your texts, you can send in your voice notes on 0593932 993. Let me listen to this voice note.
Doc, your guest is like comparing oranges to lemon, and it's not possible. You and I know the way the Western bring up their children is different from the way an African or an African home will bring a parent. So please, let us stick to, let's say, an African set home, bringing up a child, let's say a male child. What should you do exactly? I want the exactly thing you do as an African parent, not Western parent. Thank you.
0593932 So, guys, so that is where I think the challenge is, isn't it? That most people feel strongly that there is a
way of life.
yes, like this is our way of life,
Yes, sure.
and this is their way of life.
Yes.
Do you find that? I think that's how come a lot of people ignore
mental health.
They don't want to appreciate
mental health in children. I think that's the reason why. Because we feel that I don't say like the pampering, but we feel that the explanation of things to children, we feel that understanding of children's emotions and understanding their moods and using different types of rewards and punishment systems, we feel that is Western. I don't know why, but we feel that even in schools where, let's say, they don't cane children, we feel like, oh, no.
We're pampering them.
We are pampering them.
You know, this lifestyle have been there for years.
Yeah.
And we
I
came to
agree
meet
with
it,
you.
and
Yeah.
the society have accepted it that way, that this is how we do it, and it works. And I tell you that the number of mental health cases coming to our facilities are increasing every day as a result of how some people were raised, affecting them at the latter part.
Yeah.
I'll pardon the old generation that maybe they didn't know much, but fortunately, our time, we have social media and other technologies around it. Other sites you can read, or social media can give you evidence of some of these things. And I'm telling you that every child growing comes up with his own personality. Understand them, understand how they are, and come to their level and match up with them.
Every child has their personality.
As they grow up, they portray certain characteristics, they portray certain behaviorals, which shows their trait and their gift or something they are bringing up. When you shut them down at the early stages, they become timid.
Yeah.
The timidity will come. They can't even come out. Now
Socialize.
they'll be shielding things, or they'll be harboring things in them. So growing up, when they're going through issues, they can't come out. When they are being faced with difficult situations, they shiver. In fact, they don't even have the patience to even listen to some people. How do you get married with such attitude? How do you work with people with such attitude?
How do you even cope in school?
It will affect you. That is what we are trying to say, that instead of you moving to that tangent, why don't you come to the flip side of it? You get the same results, rather than you being impatient. Because of your impatience, you want to, move that anger and that hasty, process on the child. Of which the child might be slow compromising to it.
So, if I'm hearing, it means that give your child time, or give your child a room to explain to you probably
things.
how they
Process
feel,
is taught.
why they did something.
Yes, come out with a reason, even with a negative attitude or with the wrong actions. Allow the child to come out with the reasons. Then you counter with your own reasons why you want him to do this and this and that, and the effect of that. Come out with certain rewards. If you do this, I'm going to give you this. If you do this, I'm going to, rather than going through the spanking side. I'm not saying it's bad, maybe going through the other punishment, but it shouldn't override. It shouldn't be the norm.
There should be a reasonable.
Because our society, that is it. The little thing you do, hey, we are shouting on you. We will shout on you. If you don't shout on you, we slap you, or we will either push you somewhere. It's all in public. One thing about me, growing up, I didn't like being embarrassed in public. I didn't like it at all. So when my parents does that, I feel sad. I feel heavily embarrassed, and sometimes I feel like my thoughts and everything I'm putting up is useless. When I became a little bit timid, I was timid in a way. I had to realize, think about myself, try to do some introspection to understand that whatever I'm doing or whatever I'm going through wasn't the normal thing I was going through. Even at the time I hadn't gone to do this course, I saw that there was something wrong with me, because that extreme shyness, I can't really come out of my shell. I can't have in terms of people gathering, standing before them or among them or anything. I was having difficulties. Because my dad was the strict type. Hey.
I like pause.
Hey, I'm from the mission also. I'm from the mission also. I know what I'm saying. You can't do anything anyhow. We won't even listen to you. The standards are there.
The standards are there.
Just follow it and be free.
Yeah. I 7
That was the punishment to come the other way around.
But you see, I like how you're making it realistic, because this is you telling us.
Yes,
and
this is
listen,
my
a lot of
business
people are going through that right now.
Yes.
Mirrors forms of
Like they're
love.
going through, like, it's not like it's not like maybe a mission house, but your parents are super uber strict.
Yes.
You can't express yourself. You can't express your views. And I'm telling you, growing up, I had a mentor who was a doctor. I think I was in med school then. And I remember visiting her home and how easily her children spoke with her and expressed their views and disagreed with her when they had to. And I wasn't surprised when later on in her medical career she became a clinical psychologist. I wasn't surprised, because and all her kids, like every one of them, has turned out exceptionally well.
Yeah.
Because they could. I remember I was like, this is different. Like they could express their views and say, no, mommy. As for this one, I think that it should. It's not like they're having an argument with you, but they're just expressing their view on what you are asking of them. Exactly. And I think it develops you differently.
Very, very, because there has been countless cases. I've encountered several cases of some of these. We call it social anxiety disorder.
Yeah.
So and it starts from when you are doing the intake assessment. You could see that right from childhood, their parents were overly strict on them, and it turned out to be in such a way that some of them, right from childhood, from school, a driver will come in, pick you straight to the house. And there are some rules you're supposed to adhere to. You don't have to go out. You need to be in your room throughout. So being in such an environment whereby the level of discipline and strictness is too high, you could see the child will turn around in such a way that adulthood, they don't want to they have difficulties socializing. They have difficulties really socializing. And that's where it starts from. And the moment they are in a crowded space, you could see them going through phases of panic attacks. Their heart is beating faster, shivering. And so you might think that, okay, they are fainting and everything. But it is something which is a big deal to them. They can't really do it.
But they are shy children. There are people who are
Yes, we have shy children.
But you're talking about the extreme...
The extreme phases, whereby to them, because of such upbringing, and parents didn't pay attention to it, and people who are very shy, they are the ones who are more likely to be exposed to some of these social anxiety disorder. When the parents start from being overly strict, then there's a high tendency that they will lead up to such issues. And when it happens, you could see them always quarreling when they find themselves in crowded spaces. They are shivering, panting. And when you say that, you might think that, why should this be a problem? But it started right from childhood, how the parents oriented them through that strict manner. It has made them to be in such phases.
So it's not about being strict or overly strict on your child. It's about having a reasonable level of control.
Yeah.
But also giving the child room to also express themselves
Exactly.
to you, right?
Yeah.
So to the parents who are listening and to all those who are texting me, asking me to ask specific questions, yes. I understand. Let's take it that we come from a generation where the right things were not done, and that we owe it to ourselves and to our children to change that narrative. We come from that generation where our parents did not have the opportunity to have clinical psychologists and mental health nurses and mental health. That the profession was not as vast as it is now. So the people who raised us may have raised us with some of their embedded trauma, and they transposed that to us, and now we are seeing that as normal. But I like what Paul said. He said, try the other side. You will get the same results. And for that, I agree 100%. Try the other side, and you will find that the results are the same. Paul, someone wants me to ask you that for you who was brought up in a mission system, in a regimented Christian system, he's saying that he is bringing up his children in the same fashion, and he realizes that what you're saying is true because it's like dimraneso.
Yeah, you have no option.
So he's asking that. So for someone like him, where does he even start from? It's not a break that cycle because you're suffer ba, you're catechist ba, your parents are church icons. How then do you allow your son or daughter to not follow a certain path?
I would say this. Even with myself, like children growing up, they have a lot of questions. They have a lot of questions in mind, and the opportunity for them you give them that opportunity to also express themselves is the issue. To start building some sort of friendship with your children. Come down to your level, understand them from their perspective. Then, whilst you also bring out your ideas in a nice way of making them understand where you're also coming from and the standards we are in. These help the parent and the child relationship so that the child can even come to you at any point in time when he's being troubled. When you create that barrier, I can't tell you how I feel. I can't tell you what I'm going through. I will never come and tell you because I know you shout on me. That has been the first thing you will do. So I can't really have that kind of that level of relationship with you. So a lot of things will be harboring in me. Now, if I want to express myself, I'll be expressing myself to my peers. I'll go out. And these are the effects which will start dropping. And in their latter stage of life, there will be a whole lot of formation of lifestyle, which they'll pick up. And by the time you get to realize,
so
it's out of the way.
So you see, that's why, and it's not all of them. I don't want to box everybody together.
No.
We have a lot of recalcitrant children of religious people. Let me bring in Pearl. Dr. Adu-Nyako is a specialist psychiatrist. Pearl, how are you?
I'm good, and you?
I'm well. It's good that you guys are doing this for children, and shouts to Kusimens and everybody who has taken child mental health seriously and is pushing it. But is it that, like we're saying, like you see the child of strict parents and I'm quite baby, like he or she is totally different from what you expected? Is it that we the parents, we are hard at hearing, or we are blind to seeing that my child is different? I'm a pastor, yes, but my child is not meant to be a pastor. Or I'm a military man, my child is not meant to be a military man. Or I'm a doctor, my child is not meant to be a doctor. Oh, a doctor? I don't just
Debbie. So it's good we're doing this whole week, 3rd to 9th.
Okay.
And it's a beautiful team, knowing yourself, growing yourself.
Knowing yourself, growing yourself.
Nice. And to the parent, then it means knowing your child, growing your child. And I've been enjoying the discussion on my way here. Apologies to not being here.
That's fine.
So this is it. What it is that the myths that we have grown up with, that when you listen to your child, you are Western. When you don't listen to your child, you are African. The myth that children are empty, they are an empty slate, and so you are building on. And it is what you stick, like we stick things on the wall. When you stick it, it has to stick. These are some of the numerous myths. They are not real. The truth is that now we have enough data to show that across the races, we all develop the same. Across the races and the cultures, a child is a growing human being. And a child is not a small adult. And we have now the knowledge that up to the age of 5, the human brain has achieved its maximum size. It has all the features present for that human being to develop well. By the time you turn 21, you should have had all the necessary exposures to enable your brain mature and form all the necessary nerves and connections that will allow your brain to function, interact with the world around you, and be productive. And that is where mental health is. So the thing is that we do not have this knowledge. We do not have the knowledge that the brain of the 0 to 2-year-old is not matured enough to deal with things like logic, to deal with things like depth and height, abstract things. They cannot complete a picture in their mind. And these are natural processes. 0 to 2, they are purely sense-oriented. So I see, I feel, I touch, I taste. That is all they are about. So that age, training the human being who is 0 to 2, what you are doing is, as a parent, you provide the right environment for the brain to grow and form the necessary connections that will help the child now use his brain to form the right behavior and the right emotion. So 0 to 2, like Ken was saying, all your activities, feeding, bathing, responding to their cry and everything, is the beginning of the parent's lesson to learn, to listen to the child.
But that time, Pearl, we don't have time.
But the fact that you don't have time doesn't mean that child should not grow.
0 to 2, you are sensory, so that means that my white walls, you want to put crayon on it.
No, so that is where your training comes in. So, no. So Kwesi, so understand the child that child did not know that the wall should not be written on.
But that is how.
Please let me land.
Just wait. But
so you are
I'm
being the devil's advocate. I like
today,
that. I like
because
that.
You see, I want people to understand
what it takes.
What it takes.
Yes, and this is what it takes. What it takes is that as soon as you saw the child starting to pick little things from the floor, that's the beginning of fine motor development. That is the beginning of learning to write. At that stage, that's when you now begin to train the brain of that child to know where to write, and the wall is not one. So at that stage, in fact, we have the beauty of beginning that training as early as 8 months.
Okay.
Yes, and a lot of parents at 8 months think that the baby is just a mouth and, excuse me to say, an anus. You feed, it poops. You feed, it poops, it sleeps. But that is not it. Now we know that the brain comes like a fully furnished house. And your parenting role is to know which button to switch based on the need. So we need air conditioning, so we switch it on. So the same way the child has started picking things from the floor, it tells you that child is now developing fine motor. So that child buy a magic board, buy things that they can now begin to try fine motor and develop that skill. And in that stage, the beauty is that they can remember things, not like short term. It's something between short and long term. So if you do the positive reinforcement, you praise when they write at the right place, it will stick. You help them to see, don't write on the wall. So as soon as they write, you respond. Because from 8 months going, the memory is not, if you are not there, you exist. From 9 months, if it's not there, it exists. Permanent memory is formed. That's why they play the peekaboo, hide and seek. So when they make the mistake for 0 to 2, immediately you bring the right step. That is the proper training.
How do you bring the right step?
So you bring in a rag with water and soap, and you give the child a rag. You also hold the rag, because learning at that stage is observe, copy, imitate, and repeat. And you clean the marker with the child. That exercise is the parenting that should happen, not the beating. The beating for that child's age, they don't understand, because they don't have abstract thinking. They can't complete the picture. So it's like me telling you, hey, keep your blood pressure below 120. Can you do that? And I'm beating you. So I should be asking you, the parent, excuse me, are you okay? You understand? Are you okay? Can you control your height yourself? I beat you. Grow tall. You see, so what is Western about this? And what helped the older generation, the past generation, was that everybody chipped in the training. It was a whole extended family that brought the child up, a whole community. So if even me, the parents, the precious Amanda, prevents me from being attentive to listen to the child's reactions and responses and get to know the child, there's a grandmother who is at home, who has spent the whole day at home with the child, who has gotten to know the child, and so is able to correct when I err. So when they grow up, they have gotten the right nurturing from different hands, and the outcome is better. See, it's not just Western. Now, even in the Western world, they have overstepped that knowledge. And so they go to the point where they have the highest cases of child suicide, child behavior problems, child substance use problem. So it's not about Western. It's about us knowing the child, understanding the level of development of that child's brain, because you are your brain. So like I was illustrating, as you go through the process of cleaning the wrongly written mark on the wall with the child, you have taught the child that that is the wrong place. The next time they do it, you may have to go through the process. This time, you will show the child, but you let the child clean the entire thing. I can assure you that if you do this continuously, that child will not write on the wall again. The next time they feel like writing, they'll come and say, Daddy, where's my crayon? Where's my marker? Where's my whiteboard? And you have taught the child. That is learning. That is parenting.
That is learning. That is parenting. We're 11 minutes past 9 o'clock here on Orange 107.9 FM. Like I said today, I'm the conduit for all parents who are of the old order, who are of the old order. And because you see, I don't want anybody listening to us to harbor, the wrong ideas. So you send your wrong ideas to me. I'll say it for you. Okay, don't be shy. Send it to me on 0593-932-993, 0593-932-993. Mental health in children is super important. It's super important. And Ken, you mentioned something earlier that I got a message on, and I think it's because of the times that so he was asking that how are clinical psychologists like you using social media positively to change how social media in itself is affecting kids negatively?
Yeah. So, Doc emphasized something about you making sure that, you let the child learn by imitating. And that's one key thing we emphasize on. Because if you really realize, we normally say that as a parent, you're supposed to limit certain things the child observes. So that's why certain channels like DSTV, we have something known as PG, parental guidance. Because as the child grows up, their brain are still developing, and they pick information very, very fast. So when you expose them to some of these scenes, like these explicit scenes or aggressive scenes, with time, they role play, especially after they've watched these action movies. If you really paid attention, some of these kids, they'll role play and say, yeah, Jack, maybe killer, no? Yes. And they role play such things, and you might think that, it is a normal thing that they are supposed to do. But as they watch them consistently, and they find themselves in a situation whereby they are supposed to resort to violence, they are likely to go for some of these leading characters, especially these Chinese movies. They will try to replicate it in those fighting aspect, and that's where it starts from. So with time, as they grow, the only thing they know is that when I have one or two altercations with a colleague of mine, I need to resort to violence. Yeah. That's where it starts from. So all these things, as a parent, you have to limit some of these things. And sometimes you might think, oh, this is coming from what? From the Western world. And we Africans, we are not supposed to what? Adhere to these things. But research has pointed out, and it is glaring that it happens day in and day out. So hence, it needs to be avoided.
It's really important. I remember a few years ago, I was having a conversation with someone about the movie industry in Ghana, and I told the person that I am not likely to allow my kids to watch local movies because almost every other line is an insult. Yeah. And I was like, oh, doc, and I'm like, yes, almost every other line, even for me as an adult, I find it's like, Charlie, what is this? It's an insult, and the kids are going to pick it up. So, like, Charlie, and we had a back and forth, and I was like, you know what, if you like Google the first movie that comes to your mind, and let's check. Then we did, and he was like, "Eh, no crow." So, the power of media, social media, all forms of new media, has an effect on children.
Massive effect.
And you shouldn't allow them too much room to learn from there. And Paul.
Let me just
okay, sure.
Bring in briefly. So let's use this to talk about their language development. So every area of their development, you have to be intentional. Up until they turn 6. At 6, now their brain is matured enough to let them appreciate what the real situation is, what the ideal is, and what is the appropriate situation is. So before age 6, they lack that capacity. And you need to understand that every child has several environments that combine with what they came into the world with, which is their nature, for which we're talking about genes and temperament and immune system and physical structures. And these environments will interact with that nature they came with and produce changes in their brains, understanding and development, and produce a result of a certain personality type, a certain behavior pattern, and a certain emotional pattern. That understanding needs to be known. And with that, let's bring it to the area we are discussing, which is language development. Language development begins at a very early stage, with you babbling, making noise, beginning to say single words, double words, and forming sentences. And we've understood that from about 2 coming, in fact, at 2, you should have more than 100 words. If you don't, there's delay, and a parent should know the red flag here. Now, language is acquired through hearing it and repeating it. And we've learned right now that at this early stage, let's lump them all together up to 6. Everything we are learning, we are seeing, we are observing, we are imitating, we are practicing, and we are associating it with other things. And that's why we are repeating it. And we repeat it because we get some response that we like. That's why we are repeating it. And that is where shaping and molding behavior or conditioning comes in. And that's where the rewards that we give will either help us learn and remember it when the parent is not there, or the type of method you are using will only produce pain, will not produce any learning. And so you, the parent, you'll be exhausted, but will not have learned anything. So in that background, language, the language you want your child to use is the language you, the parent, should use. The language they watch, like in your context, should be the language they are exposed to. And because we can't control social media completely,